call the April 28th Brockton Council meeting to order. First of all, we have the acceptance of the council agenda, moved by Councillor Adams, seconded by Councillor Elphick, that the Council Municipality of Brockton accept the agenda for the regular council meeting on April 28th, 2020 as presented. All those in favor? Okay, the motion is carried. And any conflict of interest on the entire agenda, not just the closed session, the whole package tonight, any conflict of interest out there anybody wants to declare? Councillor Lifeso.
I have two conflicts. Pardon?
Okay, go ahead.
Item 9.10 on the regular agenda and item 9.15.
Okay. Is there anybody else that had their hand up for a conflict? Councillor Lang.
9.2 fire response.
What was that one? 2?
2.
Yeah. Okay. All right. Thank you. So we've gone over that. We are now at item 3 on the agenda, which is our closed session. That will be moved by Councillor Adams, seconded by Councillor Hutchin, that the Council Municipality of Brockton entered a closed session at 6:10 to deal with a matter pertaining to personal matters about an identifiable individual, including municipal or local board employees' property standards, proposed or pending acquisition or disposition of land by a local board, road allowance inquiries, labor relations or employee negotiations, a staffing update, and advice that is subject to solicitor-client privilege, including communications necessary for that purpose. Regulatory compliance matter. All those in favor of moving into the closed session? Okay, very good. The motion is carried. Okay. So
I'll ask all council members to log out of this Zoom meeting now, and we'll move into the closed session.
Oh, leave meeting. There it is. Thank you.
Okay, well, I can advise that we do have the applicant for the minor variance here. So maybe if we return to our open session and then call the Committee of Adjustment meeting to order.
okay. So I have a motion here to call the Committee of Adjustment meeting to order. Acceptance of the agenda moved by Councillor Adams.
Can you see me?
No.
You can hear
We
me.
can hear you.
Councillor Elphick, that the Committee of Adjustment of the Council Municipality of Brockton accept the agenda for the public meeting of April 28th, 2020 as presented. All those in favor?
Yes.
Carried.
Push
Okay.
the video button.
What's that?
Steve has to push the video button.
Bottom left-hand
can-
corner.
Okay. Acceptance of the minutes moved by
Thank you.
Deputy Mayor Gierzak, seconded by Councillor Hutchin, that the Committee of Adjustment adopt the minutes of the December 3rd, 2019 Committee of Adjustment meeting as presented. All those in favor? Motion is carried. Okay. So we move now to reports. We have the minor variance application report by Mr. Paoli, Reeves A 2029.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman and committee. This application proposes to reduce the minimum distance separation between a proposed house and a livestock facility across the road in order to allow a new house to be built on a vacant lot. The barn across the road is a feeder operation with a maximum housing capacity of 300. The required MDS setback is 286 meters, and Mr. Reeves is requesting a setback of 197 meters. The subject lands are about an acre and a half in size and zoned A1 for general agriculture. Without relief from the MDS requirement, building the house would not be permitted. So going into the, as we normally do, the 4 tests of a minor variance, Mr. Chairman. The first is, does the variance maintain the intent and purpose of the official plan? And the reduction that's proposed does have regard for the intent of the official plan and zoning bylaw, as the applicant's land has space limitations to build within the required setbacks. The reduction is minor in nature, as there is still enough distance between the 2 uses to allow future expansion potential of the livestock facilities. So the reduction is desirable and appropriate because a residential dwelling is permitted in the zoning. So the application maintains the intent and purpose of the official plan. Second test is, does the variance maintain the intent and purpose of the zoning bylaw, which zones the subject parcel as general agriculture, A1. It's under our understanding the farm to which the reduction applies actually sold the lot to Mr. Reeves. And we note that the MDS2 formula for expanding livestock operations found that the farmer across the road does still have some expansion ability if the house is permitted, and could increase his operation by about 50%. And would have the flexibility to build a barn further back on the lot to meet setbacks if that was necessary. So the variance maintains the intent and purpose of the zoning bylaw. The third test is whether the application is desirable for the appropriate development of the land. And we note that the space limitations on this lot don't permit a house to be built that would meet the setback requirements. So the variance will enable the property owner to build a new house while the farm would still have flexibility to expand. The fourth test is whether the relief that is requested is minor in nature, and the decreased distance to the barn across the road will have minimal impacts on surrounding property owners, as the farmers are still left with the ability to expand their operations. Since the lot legally exists and is vacant, it does warrant a reduction in the MDS setbacks. And it's not expected that permitting the variance would have impacts on the character of the area, on the ability of the adjacent owners to use their property, on the environment, or on any municipal functions. So the variance is considered to be minor. So with that, Mr. Chairman, those were my remarks on the report, and
Thank you very much, Mr. Paoli.
Yeah, just want to note I'm filling in for Planner Kiefer, who prepared these reports. Her leave began early, and so you're stuck with me this evening. Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
All right. Questions from the committee members? Questions? Okay.
Yes, Mayor Peabody, I do have the applicant is here
Yes.
As an attendee on hold. I'd be happy to take that applicant off hold if you'd like to canvass whether he has any questions.
Oh, yes. We should ask the applicant if they have anything to say. Okay.
Yes, I
Okay.
believe the applicant, Mr. Reeves, has joined us at the bottom.
Yeah, hello.
Hello, Mr. Reeves. So the committee didn't have any questions. Mr. Paoli presented the report. Do you have anything to say in support of your application?
No, just that I appreciate the consideration you guys have taken, and I just want to ensure, I just want to know, like, the outcome, if there's anything that I will have to do.
Mr. Paoli, are there any conditions there that you could?
Yeah, I'll ask the clerk if the conditions are in the agenda or the decision sheet.
Yes, we would have included the Planning report. I will look at the decision sheet right now to review what those conditions are. Yes, so the conditions would be that any future development on the property conforms to the provisions of the zoning bylaw. The decision applies only to the proposed development that was the sketch that was provided with the application, and that the minimum distance separation 1 setback shall be no less than plus or minus 197 meters to the barn located at 1060 Side Road 25 North. And those are the only conditions that are on the decision sheet.
Okay.
So, Mr. Chairman, I'll
Okay.
just note for the applicant that the next step then will be, we'll receive the signed sheet from the committee members, and then the next thing we would do is issue a notice of decision to anyone who requested a notice, which will be followed by a 20-day appeal period. And if the appeal period runs without any appeals, you would then get a notice that we didn't get any appeals, and you would then be in position to proceed with your permit with the building department.
Okay, very good. Okay, so we have the motion before us, moved by Councillor Lang, seconded by Councillor Life. So the Committee of Adjustment Corporation of Municipality of Brockton has considered Bruce County Planning File A-2029 and any objections and submissions arising from the public hearing, and hereby approves the application for a minor variance to the Municipality of Brockton Comprehensive Zoning Bylaw 2013-26 by Turner Reeves for land described as Concession 11, Part Lot 25, RP 3R6426, Part 1. Brant, Municipality of Brockton approves the minor variance in accordance with the conditions outlined on the decision sheet. All those in favor? Opposed? Okay, the motion is carried. Motion to adjourn the Committee of Adjustment, moved by Councillor Adams, seconded by Councillor Elphick. The Committee of Adjustment of the Council of Municipality of Brockton hereby adjourn the public meeting convened under Section 45(6) of the Planning Act at 7:16 p.m. All those in favor? Carried. Okay. Thank you very much. Okay, now we will move of our regular council agenda. Or did I have a, Johnny, do I need a motion to adjourn this one? We did adjourn. I'm getting confused. There's so many different meetings tonight. Okay, so now we're back into the open session. The plan is public meetings. Okay. Find that stuff. Okay. Okay, so Mr. Paley, we're on to the planning report for the Baptist Church, moved by Deputy Mayor Gierzak, seconded by Councillor Hutchin, that the Council of Corporations Municipality of Brockton is considered and hereby accepts the planning report prepared by Dana Kiefer, County Planner, April 28th, 2020, and entitled Municipality of Brockton Planning Report, and further that the council approves the proposed zoning bylaw amendment submitted by the trustees of the Regular Baptist Church of Walkerton, care of Rob Fisher, file 2027, and authorizes site-specific bylaw coming forward, and further that council approves the proposed official plan amendment submitted by the trustees of the Regular Baptist Church of Walkerton, care of Rob Fisher, file L 2026, and authorizes a site-specific bylaw coming forward. Okay, so you have a report, Mr. Paoli, on the Baptist Church.
Okay, thank you, Mayor. The application, you have two applications before you this evening. One is a local official plan amendment and the other is a zoning bylaw amendment. And the applications are to provide the ability to convert the existing Baptist church at the corner of Cayley and Jackson Streets in Walkerton to a multi-use building with professional offices fronting on Jackson Street and 2 residential units to the rear. The Walkerton plan designates the property as institutional, and part of the proposal includes changing the designation from institutional to commercial for the professional office use. And the residential uses are required to be in the form of apartments above or behind the predominant use, and the proposal will comply with that requirement. The building complies with all the setback requirements of the Central Business District zone, and the bylaw will include 2 site-specific provisions. One is to deal with parking, and one is to deal with the % of residential use in the building. So turning to the matter of the % of residential use, The Brockton bylaw provision is that residential uses are not to exceed 50% of the total ground floor area. This proposal would exceed that by 36 square feet. And that's what the amendment is going to permit if approved. As this is a relatively small area, our view is the change would maintain the overall intent of the bylaw. In terms of parking, the development is required to have 8 parking spots for the commercial use and 4 parking spots for the residential, for a total of 12 spots. This amendment would include a reduction in the parking from the required 12 to require 6, with 4 of those allocated to the residential use. The site plan shows 6 parking spots with 4 identified for the residential and 2 for the commercial. For road maintenance, it's a requirement that the occupants park off the street overnight. So allocating the spots as the applicant has is acceptable. Since there is on-street parking on both Jackson and Cayley streets, this can accommodate the foot traffic that might be generated by the commercial use. The other topic of the report is the reuse of existing structures. The building is obviously operated as a church in the past, and these applications would allow that structure to be converted to the office and residential uses as noted. The chief building official has confirmed that the church can be converted into the mixed-use development, although the final designs have not been submitted as of yet. The development will be required to comply with the heritage designation, which we discuss in more detail a little bit later on. So in terms of heritage, the property was designated a heritage building by Walkerton Town in 1981. It was originally built in the early years of the 19th century, and under the Ontario Heritage Act, a building can be either listed or designated. The applicant will be required to work with the Heritage Committee and the chief building official to comply with the requirements prior to getting a building permit. And those requirements would apply to any exterior changes to the building. So in closing, Mayor, the application is consistent with the provincial policy. It conforms to the county and Brockton plan and with the purpose overall of the zoning bylaw. And we're recommending approval of both amendments.
Okay, questions from council. Start with Councillor Hutchin.
I would just like to say this is a great use of an old building. It's going to give us more accommodation and more office space. It's wonderful. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. Councillor Lifestyle.
Just want to comment that Rob has met with the Heritage Committee in a preliminary meeting and reviewed some of his prospective plans with the committee, and the committee is looking forward to working with him.
Okay, Councillor Adams.
Just one question, Mark. On the parking area is on the west edge of the building. And based on the drawing, it looks like it's a bit of a distance off of the property line, the setback. Just wondering what the setback is in that parking lot relative to the house next door on Cayley Street, the white 2-story.
So I just got to get my drawing turned properly. Do you mean the setback from the parking lot to the property line of that house, or?
Well, the parking lot is on the west edge of the building, right in the back side of it.
Yeah.
And I'm just wondering what the setback is. So you've got a parking lot with 6 spaces, and it looks like it is off the lot line a little bit, but I didn't see a dimension there. Just wondered what it was, just out of interest, because it is going to be a bit of a change for that resident next door, that 2-story white house, to have a parking lot sort of right beside the property.
Yeah, I don't have a dimension for that either in what I have in front of me. I do know that the applicant may have joined the meeting, Madam Clerk. I don't know if you're able to confirm that.
Yes, I can confirm that, and I'm happy to invite Mr. Fisher to participate if directed to by council.
Right.
So would you like me to ask Mr. Fisher to participate at this time, Councillor Adams, or do you still have an additional question?
It wasn't, the question wasn't a game breaker because I'm assuming, Mark, it is within bylaw regulation. I guess I just wondered, I saw it just was one thing when I drove around the property and thinking, okay, there's going to be a parking lot there now where there isn't. And that property, I just wanted to understand if there was a little relief off the property line or not. Again, I don't see it as a game breaker by any means. And if it's within regulation, it was more just a question.
Sure. I'm working with the understanding that if relief was required for that, it would have been noted by the building staff when the application was being put together. So I think we can proceed with the understanding that that is within regulation.
Okay. All right. Further questions? And then we have Mr. Fisher. Mr. Fisher, do you want to speak to the application? Do you have anything to add?
Yes, I'll allow Mr. Fisher to speak.
Okay.
He is at the bottom. I'll unmute
Yep.
him.
Yeah, it's in. Okay, Mr. Fisher, council's reviewing the application for the Baptist Church. Do you have anything to add in support of your application?
Good evening, everyone. I just I had an opportunity to review the planner's report, and I echo the comments made. Unless there's any specific questions I can assist with.
Well, Councillor Adams did have a question about the parking lot on the western edge of the property. That's now on a grassed area, and I think what he'd like to know was what sort of, are you going to put any buffering in there? What's the distance to the lot line for that? That was a concern of Councillor Adams, and I did have one phone call about that. So
I did have an opportunity to speak with that homeowner, and we had briefly discussed some options. I think we were waiting to find out if one, the application was approved, and two, I would have to get more exact measurements. I only had an opportunity to measure off from the side of the building, and I didn't obviously have the lot line specific at that time, but we can discuss if there's going to be any structure or building or bush, something to help out that homeowner, because I do hear her comments, and obviously it would be a concern of mine as well.
yeah, okay, thank you. Okay, any further issues? Now, how do we handle this on Zoom, Mr. Pioli and Ms. Hamilton, about any public input? Now that I moved to that section of the meeting, is there anybody on hold on the public that wants to speak?
Yes, so I do have a list of attendees, and Your Worship, if I can just take a moment and ask if any of those attendees would like to speak, if they could try to use their raise hand button. Okay, so I did have a chat session open with one and asked if they were hoping to participate on this particular matter. And I have not yet received a response, so I don't believe that they're looking to participate for this particular application.
Okay, so there's nobody from the public that wishes to participate. All right.
And through you, Mayor Peabody, if I can just take this opportunity, if there are any other members of the public who are watching, given that they're not really able to be here right now, if they'd like to be put on the public registry for this matter so that they can receive updates about what might happen with this matter or any other planning matter this evening, if they can please email me, then I'd be happy to add them to the registry.
Okay, Councillor Hutchin, you had your hand up?
No, I was.
Okay, all right. Okay, very good then. I've read the motion. So the motion's on the floor to accept the proposal amendment. All those in favor, raise your hand. All those opposed. Okay, the motion is carried. All right, Mr. Fisher, good luck. Thank you very much. I think the whole town's definitely excited to see that property redeveloped, and congratulations.
Thanks, everyone. Thanks, everyone.
Thank you.
Thank you. Okay, on to the removing the hold from Fritzl. Moved by Councillor Lang, seconded by Councillor Leif. So the Council Municipality of Brockton has considered and hereby accepts the planning report prepared by Danny Key for Bruce County Planner dated April 28, 2020, and entitled Municipality of Brockton Planning Report. And further, the Council approves the proposed zoning bylaw amendment submitted by Hinsberger Fritzl, file Z33, 1891, and authorizes the site-specific bylaw coming forward. Okay, Mr. Paoli.
Yeah, thank you, Mayor. The holding removal in front of you is associated with an approved application for rezoning to expand Fritzl Concrete that was approved in February 2009. The property was placed in a agricultural, commercial, industrial zone with a holding, and the holding did not permit development until an archaeological study was completed. The proponent has completed and filed a stage 2 archaeological study with the ministry, and there were no fines and no required mitigation measures. Therefore, they've fulfilled the requirements of the holding and it can be removed, so they may proceed with their development.
Okay, very
So
good.
that's the background on that.
Yep. Any questions from council? No, okay. Hearing none, all those in favor? Or, oh, I should have asked the members of the public, Ms. Hamilton, right? Seems like a routine thing, but is there nobody from the public?
If
No.
we could maybe just pause for a moment. Yes,
Yeah.
I do believe that there is
Oh,
a
there is.
member of the
Okay.
public who would like to speak.
Okay.
Okay.
Yeah. It's a lot harder running the planning meetings on Zoom. 'Cause you can't
Yes.
see who's
So
waiting.
this is Miss Biesenthal.
Oh, okay. Okay, yeah. Sorry about that. Yeah.
Hi.
Hi, Ms. Biesenthal. We're just reviewing the application to remove the hold on the Fritzl.
That's right. Scott and I have been longtime neighbors to Fritz Concrete and more recently Fritzl. And we're not necessarily interested to challenge or oppose removing of the holding. We're just concerned and wondering what checks and balances are in place. With the expansions over there over the years, it has a significant impact to neighboring properties and specifically garbage that blows onto the neighboring ditches and the fields and properties, a significant amount of dust and ongoing significant noise. And I'm just wondering if council has any checks and balances in place in terms of limiting those challenges, I guess, to the closest neighbors.
Okay, that's a good question. Mr. Paley, anything we can do about that? Or-
I think the matters that are raised, which are the garbage and the noise and the dust, I don't believe there are planning instruments that directly regulate or control those. So I think the remedy is going to have to come from neighbor to neighbor discussion, and if unresolved, a complaint basis.
Okay.
Okay, I wasn't sure that this was the right forum, but when the letter was received, we thought we would participate. We have in the past had discussions and it's kind of fallen on deaf ears, basically.
Your worship,
Yes.
we would also always encourage residents, while there may not be planning tools that might be an avenue, I don't know whether there might be any specific bylaws that might apply in this case, but if we did receive any complaints from any resident, we would certainly investigate whether we did have any applicable bylaws if there's ever been an infringement. So I do always encourage residents, if they are having a concern that they're not able to resolve on their own, to please get in touch with staff, the bylaw enforcement officer, or certainly myself, and we can investigate and see if we have any other tools to assist in rectifying any concerns.
Okay, Councillor Lyso.
Thank you. Is there any way you can deal with by way of a site plan? with requesting that berms or other fences type of thing be put in place?
They're asking.
Through you, Mayor.
Reduced.
I guess my observation would be that it sounds like the kinds of problems that are arising are more ongoing operational matters that the site plan would determine the specific locations of things, but not how it's actually run, and wouldn't particularly regulate things like noise. And so I don't know that site plan would be a remedy for these particular concerns.
My only question was that with respect to the waste disposal sites, et cetera, we put in berms, trees, et cetera, that will affect, the trees will affect the sound being transmitted to a certain extent. Will not alleviate it completely, but sometimes burns, fences, et cetera, will stop some of the garbage blowing across and alleviate the dust and noise to a certain extent, possibly.
Okay.
Yeah, the noise thing, that's one thing if it starts at 6 in the morning, but when it starts at 4, and I know it's a place of construction business and that, but I know when we run our dryers here, we can make the town of Chepstow pay a dear price too with noise, but we shut off at 7 and we start at 7 in the morning, we shut off by 10 at night. So I don't know if there is a bylaw for some sort of start time as far as a noise level that can be, but maybe it is just a neighborly thing. We should go over and talk to them again. But like I said before, since they've expanded and gotten larger, it seems to fall on deaf ears all the time.
Okay, Councillor Adams.
Hey there, Scott and Kim. Guys, I think what Fiona mentioned really makes sense. If you're having neighbor concerns, you've tried to talk to them, I would say things like blowing trash, papers, whatever, noise at 4 in the morning. I know we've got a noise bylaw, and there are other tools that we can use to probably maybe get attention, I think. So I would really take advantage of that so that the municipality can help. I don't think any one of us would want noise at 4 in the morning waking us up, or constantly picking up dirt and debris and so on. Releasing the holding pattern, the holding zone on this one, probably it could have been addressed before this. I think this is the second part of this bylaw, is the holding zone, but maybe the municipality can help get some resolution for you, because I don't think any one of us would want to have what you described in our own lives.
Okay, we appreciate the opportunity to participate, and like I said, we weren't sure that this was the right forum, but since we got the invite to attend tonight, we took it as an opportunity. Appreciate that, though.
Okay. Thank you for participating, Mr. and Mrs. Biesenthal. Okay, so we have the motion before us. Okay, Councillor Lang, do you have your hand up?
I know we did, we did conflict of interest in the closed session, but I just want to make note through you, Mayor Peabody, to Madam Clerk, that I did declare a original conflict on this last year, and I'll continue to declare a vote. I will not.
Okay. Great, thank you. Okay, all those in favor of the motion? Okay, opposed? Okay, it's carried. Okay, on to Clancy. Moved by Councillor Adams, seconded by Councillor Elphick, that the Council of the Corporation of the Municipality of Brockton is considered and hereby accepts the planning report prepared by Dana Key for Bruce County Planner dated April 20, 2020, and entitled Municipality of Brockton Planning Report. And further, the Council approves the proposed zoning bylaw amendment submitted by 2564744 Ontario Limited, care of Devin Clancy, files at 2020-02, and authorizes a site-specific bylaw coming forward. Hey, Mr. Paoli, report 5.3 on the agenda.
Yes, Mayor Peabody, this application by Devin Clancy is to rezone a property in Chepstow to allow several site-specific reductions to the bylaw. It also included 2 consent applications, and if those were approved, the proposed amendment would permit 3 new houses to be built. The applicant completed a sewage impact assessment study consistent to support the plans for a tertiary sewage system requirement on the 3 lots. And our review looked at the application in terms of whether it's efficient use of land and whether the lot sizes would be appropriate. In terms of the efficient use of land, because Chepstow is a settlement area, it does make sense to direct a certain amount of growth in the form of infilling to Chepstow. The proposed on-site sewage system allows for smaller lots, which provides for more efficient use of land and infrastructure. Looking at the lot sizes, the proposed lots are, I'll just list them, 1514 square meters for 2 of them, and the third would be 1775 square meters. The reduced lot size is largely consistent with neighboring lands. 2 of the adjacent lots are approximately 2,000 square meters. As noted, the applicant did submit a sewage system impact assessment report to analyze nitrate levels, and it was found that an advanced treatment system would be required on the lots to ensure the 10 milligrams per liter standard at the property boundary is achieved. So based on those foregoing points, the application conforms with policies that the severed and retained lots be an acceptable size for their intended uses and have regard for the proper treatment and disposal of stormwater and proper lot grading, safe and adequate access to the highway system, and consistent with sewage and water servicing. Municipal staff in the review of this proposal identified that there's an existing and ongoing drainage issue in the vicinity of the site and requested a lot grading and drainage plan, which the applicant has provided, and staff have also requested that the associated works to implement the lot grading and drainage plan be installed prior to the development proceeding. And so to implement that intention, the property is also under a holding, proposed to be under a holding symbol, which would be removed when the applicant's completed a lot grading and drainage plan to the satisfaction, and associated works to the satisfaction of the municipality of Brockton. So to summarize, Mayor, the application is consistent with provincial policy, county plan, and with the intent and purpose of the zoning bylaw, and planning staff are recommending approval of the amendment.
Okay, thank you. Questions from council. Councillor Adams.
Yeah, Mark, just a quick question with regards to the drainage. That's the only concern that I see here. I saw the comment about going up almost to the roadway. My question would be, I know they have to do a drainage plan, but where will that water outlet, and will they make sure that it doesn't affect neighboring properties?
Through you, Mayor Peabody, I don't have that answer in terms of where exactly the water will outlet to, but in terms of impacts on neighboring properties, I think that is what staff are looking to ensure will be addressed with what they've requested to lift the holding zone.
Through you, Mayor Peabody, that is correct. That is why we asked for the stormwater management plan and the works to be completed in advance. I can also advise council that both the applicant and the engineer that has been retained by this applicant who has prepared that plan are also attending. And I do see that the engineer, Mr. Burnside, has raised his hand and would like to speak. So he might be able to explain how this proposal may deal with the water. If council wishes to hear from him, I'd be happy to,
okay, very
to bring
good.
him on at this time.
Sir, for Mr. Burnside, please.
All right, can you hear me now?
Yes, Travis, go ahead.
Okay, perfect, thanks. Appreciate the opportunity to comment here. So as mentioned by Mark, there's an existing drainage issue there that we, I guess, being forced to remedy as part of proceeding with this development. So the proposal is to install a ditch on the north side of the Chepstow Road for approximately 120 meters to the west, where there's an existing municipal culvert underneath the road that runs south to the mill pond. So that's where the runoff is proposed to go from the site.
Okay. Further questions?
Chris, just while we've got Travis on the line, just to ensure, and I mean, obviously that will abate any problems with neighboring properties. Travis, I mean, it sounds like there's a fair bit of water there.
Yeah, so the proposal is to, there'll have to be culverts installed under the driveways to ensure that run, because that's the issue right now is 2 of the 3 driveways don't have culverts, and that's backing up the runoff. Any runoff that's coming off those lots, as well as the farm field in behind, can't get past the driveways. So as part of this, in discussions with the roads department, we were told that we'd have to carry the water to a sufficient outlet, and down to that culvert is the only option, as that is the direction that the flow goes once it surcharges the driveways currently.
Okay.
Thank you.
Okay, further questions? Okay. Does the applicant have anything to add to the application?
Yes, I believe the applicant has indicated that he'd like to speak. Can I allow him that opportunity at this time, Mayor
Yes.
Peabody?
Yeah.
Yeah, you can hear me?
Yes, we can.
Yeah.
Okay, I'm just wondering if there's, I know we kind of went through this already with Travis, the engineer, but if there's 2 driveways that don't have culverts already, and there's a water problem, if we don't do anything, is there not still going to be a water problem? Like if we choose not to build anything on this land, like why are we the ones that have to come in and fix everyone else's? Like how did they get a permit to put a driveway in without a culvert, I guess? Or with a culvert at the wrong height?
Okay, I don't know who wants to answer that one.
Through Mayor Peabody, I don't profess to know very much about drainage or to be anywhere near an engineer, or even to be able to do basic math most of the time without some error. But I think ultimately the principle at this point would be that while there may have been water issues at this site beforehand, those problems could have been made worse with this development. And so that's why in order to allow the development to occur, we have to ensure that those water problems will not be exacerbated by this development. And that's why we requested that the stormwater management plan be provided in advance, so that those other neighbors would know that whatever problems may have existed would not be made worse by the development. I see that Ms. Watson is here, and I'm very happy to hear from her at any time.
No, I think you covered it, Fiona. It's just to ensure that this development is done properly with the 3 homes here.
Okay, I think that covered it. Anything else, Devin?
No, I guess not right now.
All right. Okay. Now, Ms. Hamilton, do we have anybody from the public, from the neighborhood on queue? Wishes to speak?
Through you, Mayor Peabody, no, I would, it does not appear as though there is any other attendees who are hoping to speak at this time.
Okay. All right. Well, I've read the report. Call the vote. I just wanted to say that it's great to see Devin, getting the 3 lots and developing in the rural area. It's something that we would like to see. So that's great news. So thank you very much to the applicant. And it's also very exciting for me. The last 3 planning applications are all 3 former students who own these businesses. So it's great to see young people investing in Brockton. So congratulations. But anyway, I have the motion though. It's on the floor. So I'll call the vote. All those in favor? Okay, opposed? Okay, carried. Okay, on to next hamlet, Wells. Okay, moved by Deputy Mayor Yurzak, seconded by Councillor Hutchin. The Council of the Corporation Municipality of Brockton is considered hereby accepts the planning report prepared by Dana Kiefer, Bruce County Planner, dated April 28, 2020, and entitled Municipality of Brockton Planning Report, and further that Council approves the proposed zoning bylaw amendment submitted by Bill Wells, file Z 2020-28, and authorizes a site-specific bylaw coming forward. Okay, Mr. Pioli, your report.
Yes, thank you, Mayor Peabody. This application is for a surplus farm dwelling severance. just east of the crossroads of Pinkerton. And the surplus farm dwelling severance proposal received conditional approval, and rezoning is one of the conditions of approval. The new lot with the farmhouse and some outbuildings is about 2 acres and will be rezoned to general agriculture special, which would place a nutrient restriction. And then the retained farmland, which is going to be about 75 acres, would be zoned such that another dwelling would not be permitted on the retained lot, and that's the usual zoning that is carried out for these kinds of applications. So the subject lands, which are designated agriculture and partly hazard, in order to meet the policies for these kinds of severance, one of the requirements is that the owner of the farmlands be a bona fide farmer. We note that the retained lands will continue to be farmed and they will remain in the ownership of Mr. Wells, who meets the criteria for a bona fide farmer. His intention is to sell the severed land with the house, shed and barn, and those are surplus to his needs. He'll continue to farm the remaining acres, and he lives and farms in the immediate area. The required amendments then are that the severed parcel, as noted before, would be put into a special zone with the nutrient unit limit as usual. As well, it would have a reduced frontage of about 19 meters relative to the usual 40. The retained parcel, as usual, would be zoned to not allow a residence, and also would have a site-specific provision for 29 hectares, which would be less than the required 39. So I'll just close, Mayor. The applications are consistent with provincial county policy and meet the overall intent and purpose of the zoning bylaw. Planning staff are recommending approval. And there were no particular concerns raised by agencies commenting.
Great.
Yeah.
Good, very good. Thank you for your report. Questions from council? Okay, don't see any. Okay, the applicant, is the applicant here tonight?
Through you, Mayor Peabody, I don't believe the applicant is in attendance. I don't have any indications that any other members of the public would wish to speak on this matter.
Okay. All right, so that should cover things. Okay. All those in favor of the Wells zoning bylaw amendment as read, motions on the floor, all in favor? Okay, carried. All right, thank you very much, Mr. Paoli. I think that
You're welcome.
concludes the planning portion.
Sure.
So, thank you for your help. Okay.
You're welcome. It's good to see everybody.
Yeah, good to see you.
Yeah.
I sort of like the planning meetings better when there's people, the public, and get some input that way. So we got through it though, so it's good. Okay. On to the minutes, moved by Councillor Lang, seconded by Councillor Lyso. The Council is bargaining to adopt the minutes of the March 10th, 2020 regular council meeting and the April 7th, 2020 special council meeting as presented. All those in favor?
I just have a point, Mr. Mayor, on the minutes.
You want to change something? Okay, go ahead.
Yeah, sorry, just in the March 10th minutes at item 7.12, the action that staff were directed to bring forward the consolidated traffic bylaw and also a report back on traffic control at Hinck Street. I just believe that should be corrected to be Cemetery Road is where the issue was along Cemetery Road and the crossing of that. So
yeah, I remember that.
Just understood. And then also business out of the minutes, item 7.13 in the March 10th minutes. There was a mention at a meeting that perhaps this resolution that was passed might be different, and I'm just wondering if there'll be an update coming forward on that.
Okay, Ms. Hamilton. So.
I'm sorry, which particular section are we?
The broadcasting of council meetings by Whiteman Telecom.
Yes, there will be reports coming forward at future meetings about that matter.
Okay, so I'll be corrected, Mr. Elphick, and all those in favor? Carried. Thank you. Okay. Any business arising from those minutes? Any business? No. Hearing none, we'll move into section 9 of our meeting, which is the reports. So our first report is Brockton Child Care Center non-resident charges, moved by Councillor Adams, seconded by Councillor Elphick, that the Council of Municipality of Brockton hereby receives report number BCCC 23, Brockton Child Care Center non-resident charges prepared by Sharon Bross, Brockton Child Care Center supervisor, and in doing so, does not recommend charging a non-resident fee to families outside of Brockton that use the Brockton Child Care Center. Okay, so you have the report, you've read the report. Any questions on this report? Who would like to start? Councillor Lang, this guy's hand up. There he goes. Okay.
Not so much a question, through you, Mayor Peabody, just more a comment too. I like the report, and the reason I like the report is because we used our committees of council. We took a question to them, they talked about it as a committee, and they came back and decided unanimously that they were against the non-residence fees, which I support, and I do support this report. But what I do think we need to do is really reconsider the residents versus non-residents. And I think Councillor Hutchins said this last time, but I'm sure she'll speak to it again, that our residents pay taxes towards this daycare. And then if they're lucky to get in the daycare, then they'll pay again. Where if someone who's from, I'll use an example, the town of Hanover, that doesn't even support our county side of things, would maybe get in prior to. So I think I like the report. I'm in support of what the Committee of Council through the Daycare Committee has suggested to us, but I do think there's some room.
Okay, one perspective. Okay. Any further questions? Councillor Adams.
Yeah, hearing what James said, I think I echo that as well. We probably need to do more of that, James, is get decisions back to committees, let them talk about it. In a lot of cases, they're closer to the scene than we are, better expert at it, and they came back with some good points. Just reminding council from when we talked about this back in, I believe, February-ish, there were 131 families using, and there were only 8 families in total that didn't live in Brockton. One of the pieces that I got from that committee discussion was there are, Bruce County Social Services indicated there are some Brockton residents using childcare elsewhere outside of Brockton. And I didn't really think of that piece of it. So on balance, I mean, there were only 8 families. We're going to expand that childcare center. So I think they did a really good report, and really, for me, it substantiated that I'm fine with where we are on it. Certainly, we all want to see Brockton residents get a value for their money. I think they are, and I think it's a small issue, and we do have other people going elsewhere. So maybe on balance, it works out.
Okay, any further questions? Just wanted to add to, if you notice in the report, the Bruce County puts in a large portion of money into our daycare. And it's interesting how you can be on council for so long, and until you start really digging in and asking a question, some of the assumptions that one has don't always hold true. So I always thought that because it was county social services, that the money they put in was subsidizing rates for people who were working but needed financial assistance. But that's not the case. The large subsidy from the county covers a wide variety of items at the daycare. So it enhances the wages for all the workers who serve all of the children. So it's a very large portion of money, and because it's county money, residents from Mildmay and Kincardine and Paisley are contributing to that. So, for example, in the report, there may have been one person from Kincardine coming over this way, and Kincardine, their larger assessment, puts in a much larger pool of money into the county than we put in. So that Kincardine resident, the Mildmay resident, the Paisley resident who's using our daycare is, from their tax bill, it's on the county portion, but it's still one tax bill, is putting money into our daycare. So it's that's something to put into perspective. And then I did question Director McDonald from the county about, well, what about Grey County? And she did indicate that there are agreements between the different counties about daycare, and there's a daycare list. So it's because of the large county contribution, I think this is something that we need to acknowledge, thank the county, and put this issue to rest. I don't think we can charge the non-resident fee. Deputy Mayor Gierzak and Councillor Hutchin.
Thank you. It was an excellent report, and certainly the position taken by Councillor Adams, I fully support, as well as your suggestions with additional information coming forward. You know, it's a great service that we offer, and it's wonderful that we do have such a large contribution coming from the county. So small numbers of people outside of Brockton using it, and I'm sure they shop here and spread the good word about services within Brockton when they're traveling outside of our municipality. So I do think it is a small issue, and certainly glad that we have that service to offer.
Okay, Councillor Hutchin.
Well, I guess I have to give up on this one, but I still want to point out that the Brockton taxpayers are paying at our level and also at the county level. So they're being taxed twice for this service. It's a great service. I would just like to see maybe consideration for the waiting list go to Brockton residents as a priority.
Well, the Concardant taxpayers putting in 62,000 from their county portion, and we're putting in 29,000. So it's, I think I never realized that until I got up to the county. Because of the assessment on the coast, they're putting a lot more money in than we are to all projects. So
well, thank you to them.
Should acknowledge. Yes, thank you to the other municipalities. Councillor Elphick.
Just a comment that it was a great report, and I think that what we know by the wait list to get into this facility, that it's exceptionally run, and looking forward to the expansion of the daycare so we can serve more families and have people hopefully have their children here in Brockton for daycare.
Yes, the expansion is still alive. They had looked into trying to start the expansion with the working within the rules on essential services, but that's not possible now. So not until they change the essential list can construction proceed. Okay. All right. All those in favor of that report? Okay. Opposed? Okay, that's carried. Okay. On to report number 2, fire response. Moved by Deputy Mayor Gierzak, seconded by Councillor Hutchin, that the Council of Brockton hereby receives report number fire 2023 fire response 771 Bruce Road 19, January 4th, 2020, prepared by Michael Murphy, Fire Chief for information purposes, and further to provide staff direction on the source of funding if the invoice is discounted. And Councillor Lang has declared a conflict. So I don't know, Fiona, how do we work conflicts when it's on Zoom? Does Councillor Lang have to go up to the kitchen?
He may want to, but it is an open session, so he's still permitted to stay on the Zoom session. Just we won't.
Yeah, just wonder what the rules are. Okay, discussion about this. Who would like to go first?
I'll go sit at the other end of the table, Chris.
Okay, go to the penalty box. All right.
A lot of time there.
Okay. Who would like to speak first to the issue? Councillor Hutchin.
Thank you. I'd like to thank Chief Murphy for the report. Since reading the report, I've spoken with several farmers, and each were fully aware that a permit is required when they want to do a burn, and they know that they said it's basically common knowledge for at least 7 years. While I do feel sorry for the Ossendorfs, I do agree with the recommendation. I do not think that the fee should be reduced. We have waived the fine, which is wonderful. But I did speak to an insurance broker and would suggest that perhaps they contact their insurance company, that they might be able to get coverage for this because it was a fire call.
Okay. Who would like to go next? Anybody else? Councillor Adams.
This may not go around the table, but when I read the report, first off, I support what Mike's got in his very good report again, in terms of what was contravened. And we're talking about timing, we're talking about, the fire not having permit and so on. But I also think there's probably I think it was a mistake. And although I wouldn't waive it, as Kim said, we've already waived the $200 fine, but we're talking $2,200 here as a mistake. We did send 3 pieces of equipment out, and just for fun, I thought, what kind of cost would we have in that? And James isn't part of this discussion, but he probably have a lot better handle than I. But I put in, being on the Elmwood Fire Department, they kind of put in, well, what would it be? We'd send a pumper out and 1 or 2 tankers, maybe 1 tanker, maybe an emergency vehicle. What would be the cost of that? And kind of played around with the number of staff and so on. And just a guesstimate, just for what it's worth. I could see it being probably somewhere around $1,500 in cost going out to the north end of Brockton with 3 pieces of vehicle and all those employees, just sort of kicking around a number. It was a guesstimate, but we've got costs in it. And I'm just thinking, if I personally wouldn't have a problem reducing the bill and trying to get perhaps the costs back that Brockton have in it. I don't know if the insurance would cover it, maybe they'd cover the whole thing, as Kim mentioned. That's good knowledge to have. But again, I think there was an honest mistake here that probably will never happen again. It's probably true. Most farmers know that you need a permit and so on, but it is a lot of money, $2,200. It was a mistake. I personally would be okay with $1,500, reducing it down. But I do want to make sure that we maintain integrity in our bylaws without, when there are contraventions, we need to support them, I think.
All right, Councillor Elphick.
I just want to build off where Councillor Adams left off. I agree that this is certainly a high penalty to be paid for someone in our agricultural sector. That there's just not a lot of room for mitigation, and I think that in this particular case there should be some. The individuals were very cooperative with the authorities when they got there. It's in the middle of winter. This wasn't a raging fire by any means, so much so that the department, when they got there, were seeking clarification about where this burn was actually taking place. So these are things that are all coming up in my mind. I think that it's a good time for us to perhaps revisit our burn bylaw to see if it's working for our residents, especially those on farms and throughout the year. I did write to Chief Murphy just to learn more about the costs that are associated with it. I understand that we charge out at $625 per hour for each unit that goes out, but I don't think I think that's just simply the charge that goes out, not necessarily the actual cost. So it would be helpful to know the cost, like Councillor Adams was saying, that was incurred by the municipality, and have a cost recovery in that regard. And if it's $1,500, then I would support that as well. But
okay.
I think that we should, in this case, look at reviewing the penalty and look at also the bylaw again to see if there's areas that we can improve when it comes to getting permits and supporting our farmers.
Okay. So we have 2 councillors wanting a reduction. Nobody supporting a total 0. 1 councillor supporting the full bill. Councillor Lightstone, and then Deputy Mayor. Okay, Councillor Lightstone first, yes.
Yep, thank you, Your Worship. I'm just trying to find the mute button. I'm actually supporting Councillor Hutchin on this one. I agree that, the staff and the council municipality has made this policy well known. It has been in effect for a long period of time. I can feel some sympathy with the Ossendorfs suddenly being hit with a bill when they thought they were having a simple burn. But at the same time, once again, you start setting precedents. And everybody's going to say, we didn't know about it. It's very hard to prove a negative. We've always held that ignorance is no excuse. Ignorance of the law is no excuse. And that's, I think that's the policy we should be following. Again, if this had been a policy that we brought in 3 months ago or 2 months ago, or they were perhaps new to the area, I would think I would have more sympathy. I'm not in favor of reducing the penalty. I think once we start talking about what our actual costs are, that is a real minefield. And then everybody would want the same privilege. Presumably the amount that we have agreed upon and set is a cost recovery. If there are, I don't object to if there's a financial difficulty, as we are doing with taxes or other things, if people want to give them time to pay, or if they want to pay on an installment plan. I have no objections to that, but I would not be in favor of reducing the penalty.
Okay, thank you. Deputy Mayor.
Thank you. Certainly, this has been in place for quite some time. I do believe a great deal of the farming community do know about it and do adhere to the rules and regulations that are in place. However, having said that, not everybody pays as much attention to all of the things we do when it comes to bylaws, changes in bylaws, and nuanced changes in bylaws over time. I think what we're trying to do is to continue to get the message out to those who haven't got the message. And I would support Councillor Adams in reducing this to $1,500. I think it is important to show a little bit of compassion in all situations that we're dealing with. I mean, $100 million fine to Bill Gates isn't much, and a $50 fine to somebody else is an awful lot. So if we can give this farming couple a little bit of a break, I think that's a good thing. And I think they will communicate with all of their friends who perhaps don't know about this situation. And certainly Councillor Elpick's recommendation that we take a look at this bylaw and see if it could benefit from some adjustment. Certainly when there's snow on the ground, it would seem to be a very safe time of the year to have a farm fire. And I think that open season that Councillor Elpick suggested at some point perhaps makes some sense. Give everybody, if there's snow on the ground, November to March, maybe it makes sense to make some wholesale changes. So at any rate, on this particular issue, I would support reducing the fine.
Okay, so we have 3 councillors in favor of the reduction, as I am, siding with Councillor Adams' idea, so that would not be a tie situation. So just wondering, Councillor Adams, you said 1,500. Can I add a friendly amendment to your suggestion that we also discount the interest, because there was a delay on this whole file because of the COVID. So it wouldn't really be fair to be piling up interest, I don't think.
Yeah, I would agree.
COVID, yeah, because obviously wouldn't be practical. I've dealt with this last meeting. We got so much going on. Councillor Elphick.
Just a general question, Mr. Mayor. The time to pay that for this would be traditionally 30 days?
I don't know. I think so.
I'm just going to suggest that perhaps in this case, given the current state of affairs, that we allow 90 days for repayment.
For all bills, or just this one?
No, sorry, just this particular invoice.
This bill. Okay, very good. Okay, so so we have, I know you're going to vote against it, Dean, but I think we got the 4 votes, so I'm going to call a question. Okay, go ahead. You're muted. Go ahead.
Just have a quick question then, and I realize the way the vote's going to go. But are we now introducing a means test, an income test for when we assess penalties and fines?
No, we're just going case by case, and you heard the examples, and people read the report. 4 councillors made their decision. 2 councillors made the decision the other way. So not a means test. Okay, I'm going to call the question. All those in favor, raise your hands, please. Okay, opposed? Okay, the motion is carried. Okay, on to the next item. COVID business survey, moved by Councillor Councillor Lang, seconded by Councillor Lifeso. Councillor Spilly hereby receives report number ED 2023 COVID-19 business survey prepared by Paul Perot, Community Development Officer for information purposes. Okay, any discussion on that business survey? Councillor Adams?
Yeah, no question on it. I just thought it was well done, and we should pass that acknowledgement through. I think it was well put together, and it made sense, and it was a well done survey and well done report.
Okay, very good. All those in favor of the report? Okay, the motion is carried. Okay, COVID financial support resources, moved by Councillor Adams, seconded by Councillor Elphick, that the Council of Valley Brockton hereby receives report number FIN 2020-16 COVID-19 financial support resources prepared by Trish Sartori for information purposes. Any discussion? Okay, all those in favor? The motion is carried. Budget impacts, moved by Deputy Mayor Gierzak, seconded by Councillor Hutchin, that the Council of Valley Brockton hereby receives report number FIN 2020 COVID-19 2020 budget impacts prepared by Trish Sartori, CFO, for information purposes. Okay, discussion. Anybody like to weigh in on this? Deputy Mayor Gierzak?
Well, I guess the big question is we've identified some shortcomings in terms of revenue and some outstanding expenses. So what kind of plans do we have in place to address this? I suspect there are other municipalities and other cities who are reviewing their budget decisions and in some cases having wholesale changes to their 2020 budgets. So I wondered what staff had in mind in terms of addressing these shortfalls.
Okay, Ms. Watson?
Through you, Mayor Peabody, staff are reviewing their capital projects and operating budgets at this time. And we hope to bring back a report on May 12th, especially now that we have the framework for the province that kind of laid out, although it didn't lay out timelines, it definitely seems to be we're in this for a much longer term. So we are in the process of getting that together right now.
Okay, Dan, go ahead.
I just note that there are a couple of things that we have on the agenda this evening for approval, and I wonder if they should be delayed until the May 12th timeframe, so that we can put all of that discussion into context of what we have to do in 2012 versus what we need to do with the limited resources.
Yeah, good point, Dan. A lot of municipalities have been making plans. A few have been at the cutting edge of this. One of the themes I see in those mayors who have taken that action is that we probably can't rely on the province to help us out if we run a deficit. There's going to be so many other people, businesses hurting. There's so much suffering going on and economic devastation. We can't rely on the province. But as you just mentioned, Dan, excellent point. We can, this early in the budget year, control our own expenses and make sure that we have a balanced budget. So good point, Dan. Okay, next question. James?
Yeah, and a good report again, and through you, Mayor Peabody, just look at some of the big numbers, the two top ones. You look at daycare, for example, 127,000. We just talked about daycare. I'm not sure what other daycare Bruce County contributes to, but I don't know if that's something that we can have a discussion with them to offset some of our losses there. And then of course, and I'm glad Sonia commented on it, I think that's a great idea, is that each department reviewing capital and, well, all budget related things when it comes to the 260,000 that is laid out on the recreation side for potential losses that we all are in this together. Again, it is one budget, and I hope that all departments work together and find areas to support each other, especially recreation, because of course they're the ones that are going to take the biggest loss.
Yes, good point, Councillor Lang. And I did tell staff that at the emergency measures group meeting that rec has a huge hit, but that we can't, it wouldn't be fair to rec to take the whole hit, financial pain, and we do need to ask all departments to contribute, to share, to tighten the belt, to make sure that we don't run a deficit, not just the rec department. And some of these things, the damage will be felt for years, and delays, projects not done. It's quite extensive, the impact, and but we can get through it with planning and cooperation and teamwork. Councillor Elphick.
Just a question as it relates to the general government expenses. It was noted that related to COVID, there's currently $15,068 in ongoing expenses being processed. Is that going to be captured as part of the approved budget, or is that something that's going to be recorded in addition to?
Okay.
Sorry, through you, Mayor.
Ms. Watson. Yep. Right. Ms. Watson.
We're tracking all those costs. I would say they'd be in addition to the budget. We did have a transfer from reserve funds, but again, we don't have a large reserve fund. I think we had $10,000 for emergencies. So that will cover some of that, but we have, those will be in addition.
Okay. And is there specific tracking for COVID related expenses?
Everything.
Okay, thank you.
Okay, any further questions? Councillor Adams.
Yeah, just you probably many had seen the article in the Owen Sound Sun-Times. Owen Sound's expecting about $1 million off their operating budget. So we're all in this in terms of coming up with the best solutions, making sure we're dealing with true wants when we're doing our projects. And I can tell you that this is not much different, except it's much larger. It's not much different than a lot of private sector. I know some of my experience when in some businesses, when sales are off, you don't just keep riding down the rails. You have to find some ways to offset, and that's what we're trying to do. And I thank Sonia, Trish, and Fiona for keeping us online with this, because obviously I don't think any of us are looking forward to budget 2021. It's gonna be a bit of magic to keep things in line, I think. But the more we can do up front, the better we'll be off come January of 2021 when we're looking at budgets.
Yeah. Okay, thank you. Okay. All right. All those in favor of accepting the report? Opposed? Carried. County level due date deferral, moved by Councillor Lang, seconded by Councillor Leitch, that the Council of Municipality hereby receives report number FIN 2020-14, county levy due date deferral prepared by Trish Secretary, CFO, for information purposes. And further, the Council of Municipality Brockton hereby supports the County of Bruce's proposal to defer the county levy payment dates to match the deferral of the education tax due dates announced by the province. Any questions? All those in favor? Opposed? Motion is carried. COVID municipal response. Moved by Councillor Adams, seconded by Councillor Elphick. The Council, the Municipality of Brockton hereby receives report number CLK 2020-13 COVID-19 municipal response, April 2020. Update prepared by Sarah Johnson, Junior Deputy Clerk and Fiona Hamlin, Clerk for information purposes, and further confirms and ratifies all operational decisions, procedures, and cancellations put in place by staff and the Municipal Emergency Control Group in response to the COVID-19 pandemic. Any questions about the report and the ongoing response? Okay, hearing none, all those in favor? Okay. Carried. Wastewater reports. Moved by Deputy Mayor Gierzak, seconded by Councillor Hutchin, that the Council of Municipality of Brockton hereby receives report number UT 2026, March 2020 Water and Wastewater Maintenance Report, 2019 Annual Water Reports, and 2019-20 MOECP Inspection Reports prepared prepared by Greg Fertney, Director of Operations for information purposes. Any questions to Mr. Fertney? All those in favor? Carried. Bridge replacement. Moved by Councillor Lang, seconded by Councillor Lysell, that the Council Municipality of Brockton Hill receives report number PW 2025 Bridge 13 replacement ICIP grant approval, prepared by Greg Fertney, Director of Operations for municipal purposes. Okay, any questions about the good news there with the grants? No. Okay. Right, all those in favor? Okay, it's carried. Hanover Walkerton landfill site cell number 2 expansion, moved by Councillor Adams, seconded by Councillor Elphick, that the Council Municipality of Brockton hereby approves report number PW 2026 Hanover Walkerton landfill site number 2 expansion update report, prepared by Greg Fertney, Director of Operations, and in so doing approves the $26,500 required for the cell 2 number expansion being funded from the Walkerton Landfill Reserve Fund instead of borrowing. Deputy Mayor Gierzak.
Just a review of some of the discussion we've had this evening. We seems traditionally spend a great deal of time talking about 8 people, 8 students from outside of the municipality who are somehow subsidized at our childcare services facility. The biggest subsidy we have in the municipality is at our landfill site. And we have a tremendous relationship with Hanover in many ways and many services that we cooperate on, from fire services to the smart transportation and a number of other things where we work very cooperatively. However, we've spent very little time, it seems, compared to the amount of time we spend talking about 8 people from out of the municipality at the childcare services. We spend very little time talking about this ongoing subsidy at the landfill site, where the residents of Brockton and Walkerton are subsidizing Hanover through their consumption of 60% of the landfill site, while we have 50% of the costs. So I haven't really seen much progress on this issue. We don't seem to have much open dialogue to renew this situation, to come up with a landfill arrangement with Hanover that is fair and equitable to both parties. So for that reason, I won't support this report, and I won't support sending an additional $26,000 to Hanover. I think at some point, this council really needs to decide what needs to be done to ensure that Brockton residents no longer subsidize Hanover residents at our shared landfill site.
Okay, Councillor Lang.
I absolutely echo Dan from the landfill side of things. I absolutely will not support this at all, subsidizing Hanover. We're not going to have the relationship that we have continued to talk about. So that is my stance on this, and I support Dan.
Councillor Elphick.
So just wanted to clarify, as I understand the report, it's in the analysis part, it shows that there was an estimated overall savings as part of the project that was proposed for the cell 2 expansion, actually resulting in $179,500 being returned back to the municipality of Brockton as it relates to this project. So originally the request was for $206,000. Because the costings have come back, we will only now require $26,500 as opposed to the $206,000. So I just want to be clear about what this report is recommending. And it's my understanding that it's to approve $26,500 as part of the cell 2 expansion, as opposed to $206,000 that was originally requested.
Through you, Mayor Peabody. Yes, that is exactly what the report is. We had already approved the 206, and that was coming from borrowing. So no, because it's only 26.5, we're saying we have enough in reserves to cover that. Yeah. And we are still continuing to work on the agreement.
So just to ensure that we demystify anything about the additional 26,000, there's no additional amount. We had previously already supported the $206,000 going to Hanover. As a result of these savings, it's actually being significantly reduced down to only 26,500 to allow that expansion project to move forward.
That is correct.
So, yeah, you're right, Dan. So that discrepancy in the tonnage was flagged in 2014 when I first got on that committee. And it's approximately, if you did straight tonnage, it would be a over contribution of 45,000 a year that we're making. However, there are other costs. 45,000 would be too high because there's fixed costs that people would be paying anyway for running a landfill. But certainly there are costs such as the fill rate. They're filling it quicker. They're using up more volume. So those issues, the actual value of the capacity, I believe should be compensated at the proportionate rate. It's about 37% that we put in. So we did meet with the mayor and the CAO of Hanover, and we did tell them that the status quo isn't acceptable. And I think after that meeting, Mayor Patterson definitely agreed. I did talk to her recently that when the COVID-19 was over, they would be willing to re-examine some of those numbers in the 180,000 that we put in each year. Should be about 140, 135. So I think there is some progress finally being made. But,
I wonder if they're willing to retroactively examine the numbers that are being made, because every 2 years there's another reason to delay this. Certainly for everyone who's been on council last term as well, we knew that things were delayed because of the last election in October. Wow. So it's an ongoing situation, and I appreciate the fact that there's been a reduction from $206,000 to $26,000. I just believe we need to draw a line in the sand, and I drew mine in the sand, so I will vote against this.
We already voted for it though, so it's anyway. Councillor Lang.
Well, no, and I know we already voted for it. I just don't understand why. I don't understand how we can go from the 206,000 right down to the 26 after we put a little push. My concern, and I don't speak to the ratepayers, so I want clarity on that first. How can we go from 206 that we agreed upon as a council to go into that cell? Mm-hmm. I know Steve wants to speak to this, but I'd like to know how we go from 206
finish up. Yep.
to $26,000. First question, then I have a second one after that. If I can get clarity with that.
Well, Tim was on the committee, but I think, Tim, you can correct me, they did a tender and that's the way it came back. It was
yeah, that's correct.
Good bargain on the tendering.
Yeah, there was overall savings of $359,000 divided between the two municipalities, resulting in $179,500 in savings. And the project was only being requested for $206,000. The amount of $26,500, I understand as well, is coming out of reserves. The Walkerton landfill reserves are covering that amount as well. That portion be paid out of our landfill reserves as well.
Okay, so it came through on the 10.
Question two.
Question two is, how long then has our ratepayers been taken advantage of with these rates in?
Probably since 1992.
1992, our ratepayers that pay taxes in the municipality, well then it would have been town of Walkerton, but municipality of Walkerton have been taken advantage of by the town of Hanover in this agreement. I just want that.
You go back to 92, the town of Walkerton was desperate at the time, so they got to buy into the landfill for no cost at 50. So you go back that far, it gets complicated. So I'll keep the argument within how long I've been on council. So
just so it's clear to the
definitely since the cell expanded. So that would be 6-7 years ago. That's when the whole thing probably should have been renegotiated with the new landfill.
No, thanks for the clarity. We got a really good relationship there, it looks like.
So, well, Dan and James, I think it's going to get resolved. I know I know that Sonia is very good at pushing it along, and she's told the CAO there, we want to get this resolved, we want to push it along, and I definitely, having raised it in 2014 as an inequity, do want to solve it within my term as mayor. And those of you don't know me, that I'm definitely a dog on a bone on things, and Dan, I won't let it go. Once the COVID's over. Okay, Councillor Hutchin.
I just wanted to say I will support this as long as you don't lose that sight of that bone.
You keep tossing it to me, Kim.
Okay, I will.
Okay.
Thank you.
Keep, all right. Okay. Councillor Adams, you had your hand up.
Yeah, I'll try to be quick. This, to Dan's point, and Sonia and I have talked about this. I actually brought this up a couple of years ago, and we've been kind of picking away at it, and we've got auditors involved and so on, and looking at the whole picture. But Sonia and I, in our discussions, and I think Greg, I feel very strongly, this was brought up a couple of years ago, and I think we put the shovel in the ground back then. I don't know, we need to have a discussion about retroactivity, because this is not something new. This is not something that started in the spring of 2020. This is something that has been discussed. I think, Sonia, we had a meeting with Hanover Council before the last election. I think it was the fall of 2018. Yeah. And we had some discussion with them that this would continue immediately after the election. We knew that that's a problem because of the time frame. So your point, Dan, I agree. We are not asking for Hanover to pay any money towards Walkerton's waste disposal, because it is Hanover landfill, so it's Walkerton. Not saying Brockton this time, it is Walkerton. We're not asking Hanover residents to pay our share. We're just asking for a fair break, and we need to get there in both, I think, operational and capital. So I think I couldn't make the meeting that Chris, Tim, and Sonia and Greg were at, but I think you guys had a decent discussion. I think you put our cards on the table. So I think, again, I think I think we're heading in the right direction. I think we just need to bring some formality to this 1999 agreement, Chris. It is dusty to an extreme. It needs to be redone. And I think we all agree with that. That's a starting point for once we get the numbers fixed. And we do need to do that for sure. As for this piece, though, if we don't pass this, I think it'll certainly be, we need to do that if we want to keep using that landfill site at the end of the year, which I think we do. And it would also not be a show of good faith in terms of our negotiating. So I'm going to support it for sure.
Okay, thank you. I think, after discussing this with Mayor Patterson at the negotiation that we had, as well as afterwards, I do believe that Mayor Patterson is acting in good faith and would like to have good relations between Hanover and Walkerton, and wouldn't want this one item here to poison things, because there's a number of agreements we have. So I do think that there will be some progress on this once the pandemic allows us to focus on business of this nature. It's James.
Yeah, so with that being said, with Steve, I just want to be with the clarity from Tim. I will support this because we already passed the 206, so I will support the 26,000 because we've already voted on this. But no, I won't support anything. Just so our public knows, I will not support anything in the future of any relationship between Hanover and Walkerton in our landfill.
Well, by the time next budget cycle comes up, it will be resolved with the mayor and CAOs and councillors who are on the committee, Mr. Dickert and Mr. Elphick. Okay, so we have the motion before us. All those in favor? Opposed? Okay. Dean, were you declaring conflict again?
Yes, I declared conflict at the start of the
You
meeting.
had a conflict on that one. Okay. Bridge rehabilitation tender. Moved by Deputy Mayor Gierzak, seconded by Councillor Hutchin, that the Council Municipality of Brockton hereby receives report number PL 2027 DS Weiss Memorial Bridge Rehabilitation Tender prepared by Greg Fernie, Director of Operations, further approves the recommendation by GM Blue Plan to postpone the project until 2021. Discussion. Okay, all those in favor? Opposed? Okay, motion is carried. Roadside mower, moved by Councillor Lyso, seconded by Councillor Lang, that the Council of Brockton hereby receives report number PVL 2020 roadside mower purchase prepared by John Strader, road supervisor, and in doing so accepts the quote from Huron Tractor for the purchase of an Orsi Magnum 235M roadside mower in the amount of $17,700 plus HST. Okay, any discussion? You guys in favor of it, or do you want discussion? Dan, go first. Yeah.
Yeah, just a question akin to what I brought up earlier. Is this one of those items that we can delay till our May discussion with respect to budgets and perhaps delay until next year? Again, it's roadside mower. A lot of people are going to be having difficulties gardening. Some of the landscaping companies have got some restrictions in terms of what they're doing. I just wonder whether or not this is a $17,000 expense that could be delayed until 2020.
Okay, Councillor Lyso.
I actually think it's a safety issue. But the only phone calls I get are the sides of the road not being mowed and not being able to see around the corners and keeping the weeds down. Something from my point of view, I think they've done a good job in the last couple of years, much better than before, with keeping the roads trimmed, and it really does become a safety issue at the corners.
Okay, thank you. Councillor Elphick.
What is our capacity in the municipality to complete the grass maintenance for the 2020 season without the purchase?
Okay. Mr. Fernie.
Good evening. Through you, Mr. Mayor. The mower we currently have is in disrepair. It would cost a few $1,000s to probably get it back up and running. And I do agree with Councillor Lyso that this is one of the biggest complaints that we have within the municipality, and could potentially cause some safety issues. So my recommendation would still be to move forward with the purchase.
Okay. Councillor Adams.
Thanks, Greg. You answered one of the questions. I was wondering if by chance there was a trade-in. I guess not. If you're saying it's in disrepair and needs $3,000. But just a quick question. What, out of interest, I was wondering what our normal projected lifespan is for something like this. I know they get used pretty hard in the side of roads and so on in the country, and just wondering what the projected lifespan is, if you know by just a guesstimate. Greg?
Through you, Mr. Mayor, to Councillor Adams, we like to keep it for at least 5 to 8 years, but it does have wear and tear parts that we have to maintain on an annual basis.
Okay. Is there any other questions about this? Okay. All those in favor? Okay, opposed? Okay. Parking bylaw. Moved by Councillor Adams, seconded by Councillor Elphick, that the Council of the Municipality of Brockton hereby accepts road report number PW 2029 revised consolidated traffic and parking bylaw prepared by John Strader, road supervisor, and Fiona Helen clerk for information services, and further approves the consolidated traffic and parking bylaw coming forward for adoption. Okay, questions? Councillor Elphick.
So having been part of the discussion, I'm just wondering if there is some additional rationale for the insertion of the 36-hour limit. I know there was perhaps some conversations related to the municipal parking lots, but there's also the insertion for parking on a highway, and I'm thinking of those in our Lake Roslyn, Mara Lake area, where they don't have parking on the property itself and they need to park over a weekend, over a long weekend, for example. So I'm just worried about enforcement, and I'm worried about this being overly broad in trying to address a relatively minor issue.
Okay, well, I do know at the Mara Lakes, you have to have some place for the winter parking anyway. You can't be on the road. The roads are so narrow, you have to get your car off of there nightly.
Right, and that's in the winter time. I'm just wondering about seasonal residents that are coming up and not having the capacity to park on the property, and for 36 hours, if that time is sufficient.
Okay. Fiona?
It would be, I mean, if they simply left the property and came back or moved the car at some point, right? It's basically meant for cars that are stopped, are parked, have not moved for a full 36 hours. So even if, and that's why we did 36 hours versus say 24 hours, was to allow people the opportunity to, go away for a period of time. If they are going to be away for a longer period of time, we think, 36 hours kind of was a bit of wiggle room there. But then we'd think, well, maybe you don't want to be leaving your car on the highway for that length of period of time, and they would need to make alternate arrangements if they're going to be away for long enough that they can't move that vehicle. It is meant to be only continuously. But again, it was intended to ensure that we don't have a situation where we do have a vehicle that remains parked, that we're not able to otherwise, deal with that space. But certainly that's why we brought the report, was for council's input, and we're happy to make any changes that were directed to by council.
And just to build on that, the issue that I was aware of, though, is as it relates to being in a municipal lot for a long period of time. But given what you just explained, if that individual moves the vehicle from parking space A to parking spot B, it sounds like the time resets anyways.
Correct.
So I'm not quite sure that's going to ultimately resolve some of the concerns that were brought forward.
Further to that, we are also looking at I think we're calling it a vagrants bylaw, Fiona. So
well, I think we're looking at a parks and trails and municipal facilities bylaw that would, and part of this is some of Mark's experience and background in having sort of a set of rules and regulations that will apply to how people are using our parks and trails, etc. But as part of that, making sure that they're using them responsibly and are not, using them for camping purposes when that's not appropriate. So we do have another bylaw that we plan to bring forward that may assist us with some enforcement concerns that we have seen in the past. But the proposal in this bylaw was that it would just be an additional tool that we could use if we found there was a vehicle that had basically been abandoned, and to try to strike that balance when it comes to parking, to allow people some flexibility, but yet not to, to make sure that they're still being respectful of shared spaces.
Okay. All right, Councillor Adams, you had your hand up.
Yeah, just on the 36 hours, I'm totally good with that. In fact, when I read that, I thought it was kind of generous. But Chris, one of the things you and I have been talking with certain people out at Lake Roslyn, for example, and there may be some tweaking along the way. So maybe 36 won't be the right number. I think it's a really good number to start with, to be honest. And because right now we don't have anything, so we're going to have a bit of a threshold there. And if it isn't, we can tweak it. And as you've mentioned, Chris, I mean, we can come back with modifications to the traffic bylaw to make it right, to tweak it to get it right. So I think this is a good start. I certainly support what's here, but I do think there's going to be other conditions that may change. So I think this is a really good start to update it.
Okay,
and I'm good with 36 hours.
Yeah. Okay. Councillor Alphick.
I just wanted to maybe share and elaborate the situation I'm thinking of. Is that I'm aware of a situation where an individual drove into Walkerton. They picked up the Canar bus that comes through on a Thursday night, and they didn't come back until the Monday morning. They parked on one of the side streets while they were out of town. But essentially, this bylaw would now make that parking illegal for them. So even though they drove in from the the outer parts of the municipality into Walkerton to do that, they would now be in violation. And I'm concerned about setting up that because of public transportation being so limited in the rural areas, I'm concerned that because Walkerton is the pickup point, that we would be discouraging those to use public transportation because they can't park for beyond 36 hours. So just a consideration. I'm not sure if we could even designate particular lots where it's longer than 36. I'm just trying to convey the issue that I'm thinking might arise.
Okay, Councillor Hudson.
It's probably a bit of a hassle, but maybe we could issue a special permit to allow those people to approach the municipality, just like our burn permit, and they would have permission to park based on the fact that they're traveling out of town. Would just have to be made very public.
It's a good point, Tim. And Kim, maybe there's a way to authorize parking in those back parking lots. The pharmacy, for example, their cars there a lot. So I don't know.
I guess the other part.
I agree with Tim. We should just go, Mike, I agree with Steve that we should, we've got the bylaw before us. We worked on it a bit. We should probably pass what's before us, and then further tweaks can be done, because there's always different requests from the community about parking.
Yeah.
Deputy Mayor Gierzak.
Just to support Councillor Elphick again, other communities do have designated commuter parking spaces that go for longer than a 24-hour period. So whether or not we can identify those pickup drop-off places within Walkerton and clearly designate a number of parking spaces. And again, maybe it's a 4-day limit, as you indicated, as opposed to a 2-week limit, or maybe there are some trade-offs, but whatever we need to do to get started with some understanding that there's some flexibility as we experience this.
Well, there's some ideas, and yes, we'll call the vote, see how that goes. But if it passes, anybody can bring forward a notice of motion or follow our bylaw on procedure on amending the parking bylaw at a later date. Councillor Adams.
I was just, I saw Sonia had her hand up a few times, and I thought I'd like to hear what she had to say. Yeah, that's all.
Well, the only thing through you, Mayor Peabody, that I was going to say was, we act on complaint. Like, we don't go looking for this necessarily. So, that enforcement is based on complaint. So, hopefully the situation that Tim brought up wouldn't raise a complaint. But again, we evaluated each situation first of all. So that was all I was going to offer.
Okay, thank you. Okay, let's, we've got the motion on the floor about the consolidated parking bylaw. All those in favor? Okay, all those opposed? Okay, the motion is carried. Grow Rooted in Love Maternity Home, moved by Deputy Mayor Gierzak, seconded by Councillor Hutchin, that the Council of the City of Brockton hereby receives report number CAO 2024 Grow Rooted in Love Maternity Home 1-year update prepared by Sonia Watson, Chief Administrative Officer for information purposes. Okay, discussion. Any discussion? Okay, Deputy Mayor Gierzak.
Just a comment, great to see that they seem to have some tremendous success in developing partnerships and doing some fundraising. So they appear to have come a long way in the past year, and that's great to see. It is a service that's required in the community, and we did have some questions about how successful they might be, and it looks like they've come a long way.
Okay, all those in favor of the report? Okay, good. Eastridge Business Park. Moved by Councillor Lang, seconded by Councillor Lifeso, that the Council of the Municipality of Brockton hereby approves report number ED 2024 East Ridge Business Park Land Lease Agreement prepared by Sonia Watson, CEO. In doing so, approves a bylaw coming forward. Discussion.
Actually, I declared a conflict of interest on it, so I really shouldn't either be making or seconding the motion.
Oh, no, sorry. We'll put down Councillor Adams.
Sure.
Second. Put down Councillor Adams. All right. Okay, any discussion? All those in favor? Okay, motion's carried. Done the reports, I believe. Is that right, Ms. Hamilton? We're on to the accounts. Moved by Councillor Adams, seconded by Councillor Elphick, that the Council of Valley Brockton approve payment of the accounts in the amount of $611,233.04. All those in favor? Okay, the motion is carried. Information items.
Just a question, if I may. We always seem to pass by public notifications. Item number 10.
Oh, yeah, I got my sheet here, Dan. Is it there? Wow, did I miss that one?
Mayor Peabody, I'd be happy to give an overview of those two items if you like.
Yeah, I see it here. Public notification. Okay, go ahead.
So the first is the community safety and wellbeing planning. We had intended to have 2 community engagement sessions held at Cargill. Obviously, those have now been canceled given the COVID-19 pandemic. They will be rescheduled. We'll try to use other avenues. There was a survey as part of that planning, and also the deadline has been extended. So there is no particular rush to have to schedule those sessions anytime soon. And the second thing is notice of impending lane closures so that we can do some repairs on the Lobbies Bridge.
Okay. Okay, we've got that. Now on to information. Moved by Deputy Mayor Gierzak, seconded by Councillor Hutchin, that the Council of Spelling Brock hereby receives all items provided in Section 13 information. Councillor Lifeso.
Just a couple items that I think if we could bring forward ourselves for the next meeting or whenever. And the first one would be 13.7. Although we don't have a winery right in Brockton, we have one very close. And it's a subject near and dear to my heart the last 3 weeks.
Yeah, okay.
I wonder if we could bring that one forward to support Grey County's resolution. The other one is 13.8 and 13.9. They're both dealing with SMART. And I would also suggest you'd be willing to have that motion or have that that resolution brought forward for Brockton's consideration as well.
Okay. Very good. Anything else people would like to bring forward there? No. Okay, all those in favor? Carried. Moving on to the bylaws. Moved by Councillor Lang, seconded by Councillor Lifeso, that the Council of the Municipality of Brockton authorize the following bylaws be read, enacted, signed, sealed, numbered as followed. Bylaw 2020-47, Walkerton Community Official Plan Amendment, Baptist Church, care of Rob Fisher. Bylaw 2020-48, Zoning Bylaw Amendment, Baptist Church, care of Rob Fisher. Bylaw 2020-49, Remove Holding Bylaw, Hinsberger Fritzl. 2020-50, Zoning Bylaw Amendment, 2564-744, Ontario Limited, care of Clancy. 2020-51, Zoning Bylaw Amendment, Wells. 2020-58, Bylaw 2020-52, Consolidated Traffic and Parking Bylaw. Bylaw 2020-53, 584-653, Ontario Limited Zettler Lease Agreement Bylaw. You have a conflict on one there, Dean? Okay, you're on mute, but I think Fiona.
Oh, sorry, 14.7.
Right. Okay. All right. Okay. All those in favor of the bylaws? Okay. Opposed? Motion is carried. The committee minutes moved by Councillor Adams, seconded by Councillor Elphick, that the Council of Municipality of Brockton receive the minutes of the following committees and as boards as presented. Elmwood Community Sanitary Board minutes, February 4th, 2020. Hanover Walkerton Waste Management Committee minutes, February 5th, 2020. Saugeen Municipal and Regional Transit Board minutes, February 21st, 2020. All those in favor? Okay, opposed?
Chris.
Carried.
Mayor Peabody, just on the bylaws, just, I know Dean had mentioned again, but I was declaring for 14 point.
Yeah, for it's all. Yeah, yeah, that was noted.
Yeah, thank you.
Okay. Right, so now we're at item 16 on the agenda. So I thought I would begin by giving the community and council an update on developments. In the last week, well, Sunday night, I got notice that there was a positive case of COVID in a worker at Bruce Lee Haven. So that's been quite stressful on the whole community. All of the workers at Bruce Lee Haven are certainly experiencing a lot of anxiety, and we've heard a lot of need for support for healthcare workers. Well, here it is right now. The workers there do need our support. They do need our prayers, and they do need concrete help. It's very important to community of Brockton, that nursing home. So currently there are 2 workers who have tested positive. Dr. Era, Monday morning, he was very good. He phoned me twice yesterday, and his team got on it right away. So as of this afternoon, with the help of health unit and nurses from the hospitals, all of the workers at Bruce Lee Haven and Gateway and Wyerton and all of the residents were tested. So that's well over 400 tests that were performed. So a massive number of tests. Dr. Era hopes to get those test results expedited very quickly because he knows the anxiety level that's caused among our workers here in Walkerton. And he hopes to get them back tomorrow morning. So we will see at that point if there are any other infections. So Dr. Era, the health unit, they were very impressive, worked very quickly on it. The situation at the nursing home is, according to Dr. Era, manageable because the workers have been wearing the PPE for the since the suspected outbreak was declared a few weeks ago in a resident, which turned out to be negative. So people have been, the nursing home has been taking a lot of precautions. So hopefully we will get through this, and there will be a very limited number of infections at that nursing home. So that's where we're at with Bruce Lee Haven. Tomorrow will be a key day. Dr. Era did warn me, though, that one of the nursing homes, it was in the paper, they declared an outbreak there, but the resident, after being tested twice, it was a false positive. So caused a lot of uproar in that home, but it was false positive. So when you're testing that many, there could be some false positives, and then they have to track them down and see if the person indeed has symptoms, retest them. And so it is a quite an anxious time. And I just want everybody to have their hearts with the workers and the residents at our major nursing home. So that's the core of my update for the community and council. Once again, I'd like to thank our staff for hanging in there. And there's each day there are different problems that arise related to the pandemic that the staff have to think quickly on how to deal with, and make very quick decisions to try to help our residents. And I believe that we've stuck to that. People are responding to the residents and trying to help them through this pandemic. And I'd like to thank the staff for doing a great job. The unfortunate thing is, with yesterday's announcement from the government, we're probably only a fraction of the way through this whole pandemic. And it will take a lot of community effort, cooperation for Brockton to stick together so that we can get through this. And thank you to my fellow councillors for their support. Any further business brought forward? Councillor Lifeso.
Well said, Your Worship. I think you expressed everybody's feelings. Just 2 follow-ups, I guess, on the COVID. One is possibly passing a motion encouraging more testing. I think that's one of the suggestions from the health unit as well. It's very difficult to know what the what is out there without the testing.
Yeah.
So I think it would be appropriate to encourage the provincial government to move forward with more testing as available. It's not meant as a criticism. To my pleasant surprise, Premier's been doing a good job. But I do think it would be advisable if we could have more testing and more testing available. So if we could maybe look at doing a motion again.
Yep,
Next meeting, if possible.
Yep, certainly we could do that tonight.
Sure, yeah.
Sure, could do it tonight. I don't see why not. Put that
I
up.
have no idea what the wording would be. But the second one.
I just wanted to point out the main hurdle in Ontario and the world with the testing is the reagent. Once they take the swabs, the reagent, there's not enough of it being manufactured.
Yeah.
Can't wrap up those production facilities. Michael Barrett at the hospital told us that on a few of the conference calls. Okay, second point, Councillor Leifso.
The second one is we've been hearing a lot of, is actually seasonal residences. So we've been hearing a lot of, not sure the right word, but we've been hearing quite a bit from our neighboring municipalities about requesting that seasonal residents do not come into the area until such time as the pandemic is over. We don't think of ourselves as a cottage country, but we do have quite a few seasonal residences in the area around the lakes. And just wondering if there's anything or if there's any approach that we want to take, if we want to follow the guidelines of our neighboring municipalities and request that seasonal residents not attend until such time as the pandemic is over or the rules are relaxed. Because once again, I think the only ICUs in our area are in Owen Sound. I don't think any of our other local hospitals even have an ICU unit.
Well, we did talk about that on the emergency measures group. On the coast there, that has started quite a civil war in between the cottagers and the residents. And Dr. Era has advised against any non-essential travel to Grey Bruce. One of the concerns when that was first raised was by Dr. Era was the xenophobia that it could create, and it certainly has created an us versus them mentality on the coast. Given our small cottage area, I walk around the lakes every night, and my road is 50% cottage, and none of the cottagers on my road have come up, and I don't notice a lot of cottagers coming up. So to make a statement, I think would open up a real can of worms. I don't, at the Morrow Lakes, I don't see it. I don't see them congregating, and you don't see any cars in the seasonal residents' driveways.
Well, and again, it's only just stopped snowing. So the concern would be more once I think the long week or the Victoria weekend comes along. Because at the moment, I don't think there has been an issue because the weather hasn't really been good. But again, the concern is once the weather becomes good.
Well, you could bring forward a notice of motion. I won't support it, Dean, because I think it, seeing what's happened on the coast, I don't think, given our small number of cottagers, I don't think it's worth stirring that up. Those residents also contribute an awful lot to our tax base. And when this is over, it's going to leave a lot of long-lasting damage in certain communities. You see stop signs up Port Elgin that say "Stop the cottagers." And that's going to cause some long-term divisions in that community that go way beyond the pandemic.
No, I just wanted to raise the issue to see what the consensus was.
Well, you can bring forward a notice of motion. There might be a consensus to follow the lead of the coastal communities.
That's fine.
Okay, Deputy Mayor Gierzak?
Yes, certainly I support your decision. I think it's a touchy issue. We don't have a lot of cottagers. People seem to be paying very close attention to social distancing and doing the right thing. So I wouldn't necessarily try to draw attention to anybody who's contravening that. Some of those cottages, summertime cottages, may be their principal residences, coming up from Florida, the States, someplace else. So there are some circumstances. So I think the approach that the mayor mapped out is a good one. And I know that on the emergency management control group, it was discussed at length. And we haven't seen any issues. And I think to stay on the current track is probably a good one.
Okay, further business brought forward. Steve?
Yeah, I just wanted to note, Chris, you were very complimentary to, you've always been complimentary to staff, Justified, also in council tonight. I think we need to give you a shout out for what you're doing. I think you've done an outstanding job as mayor. You've been, not just your videos, you've been engaged throughout. Bruce Lee Haven, you've certainly been engaged with, but also with Brockton. I see you walking the streets, you're talking to people, you're elbow to elbow with them, with social distancing, of course. Social distancing, of course, but you're out there, you're doing an outstanding job, and I think we need to acknowledge that that engagement. And I think I'm going to say it one more time. I think staff's done a really good job. I don't know if Sarah's on the line or not, but I haven't heard one resident saying, boy, I wish Brockton were communicating, letting us know what's happening. I've heard a lot of really positive things. I think Brockton, you as mayor, I think have done a really good job of getting information out there. That has not been a weak point. It's been a very strong point throughout. And I think we need to acknowledge when something is well done, and I think it's been well done on both fronts.
Well, thank you, Steve. Yep, there's a great team here at the office. Councillor Elphick?
So two things. I wanted to recognize the flag raising that took place for the In It Together, that there's now flags, and that I understand there's now been one raised. So that's exciting. My other point, though, is that at a future meeting, I'd like to request a report around the Adopt a Highway program that Brockton currently has. I've actually received 2 separate inquiries about this program where the individuals that have stepped forward have abandoned the project, if you will, and they are no longer actively engaged with the program. And I'm wondering what our tracking as a municipality is for that program. And essentially, if we can just do a little bit of a refresh on that and make sure that those who have identified are still current and are still engaged. So I know now might, in the coming meetings are not the most appropriate time given everything that's going on, but I'd ask if council would ask for a report to come forward on that program.
Okay, it's a good idea because we don't want those signs up there saying it's being taken care of and it's a mess. Okay, any further business brought forward? Okay, so I have a
Mayor Peabody, you had mentioned passing a motion, and I have one drafted that I can read for council's consideration if you'd like.
Yes, on the testing. Excellent, thank you.
So one suggestion may be that the Council of the Municipality of Brockton respectfully request the Province of Ontario increase the capacity for additional testing for the COVID-19 virus to ensure the safety and well-being of all residents, and that this resolution be shared with the Province of Ontario, MPP Lisa Thompson, and the Association of Municipalities of Ontario.
Okay, sounds good. So moved by Councillor Lifeso, seconded by Councillor Lang.
Could we add sharing it with the health unit?
Yes.
Okay. Thank you.
Okay, and Dr. Era has been extremely accessible through this. I think he would be willing to explain things to council on the phone, on the Zoom. Anytime I could ask him, he would certainly do a little appearance talking about the testing and what's going on, their goals. But when it was needed most at Bruce Lee Haven, they had an enormous number of tests up there, so it's very good. Okay, so we have a motion on the floor. All those in favor? Okay, thank you, Councillor Lifeso, for bringing that up. Okay, now we're going to go into a closed session. So I have a motion from Councillor Lang and seconded by Councillor Hutchin that the Council of Brockton enter into closed session at 9:30 13 in order to address a matter pertaining to labor relations or employee negotiations, a staffing update. Okay, all those in favor of going in camera? Okay, thank you.
So in terms of the practicalities of that, if I can just ask all council members to log off of this Zoom session, and I will then send an email with additional instructions on either logging into another Zoom session or whether we just proceed to a conference call for this Zoom or for this last remaining discussion. So I just ask council to log off. Thank you very much.
Where are the wind
I'd like
turbines?
to welcome everybody back to our YouTube live stream. A motion to rise from the, to give direction from the closed session, moved by Councillor Lang, seconded by Councillor Light, so that the Council of Municipality of Brockton hereby accept the direction provided to staff in closed session, and doing so authorize the bylaw coming forward, appointing Nicole Mullen as Animal Control Bylaw Officer contract effective May 4th, 2020. All those in favor? Opposed? Okay, the motion is carried. So bylaw to appoint Ms. Mullen, moved by Councillor Adams, seconded by Councillor Elphick, that the Council of Municipality of Brockton authorize the following bylaws to be read, enacted, signed, sealed, numbered as followed. Bylaw 2020-54, appoint Nicole Mullen as Animal Control and Bylaw Enforcement Officer, bylaw. All those in favor? Okay, the motion is carried. Further direction. Agenda item 3, moved by Deputy Mayor Gierzak, seconded by Councillor Adams, that the Council of Municipality of Brockton authorize that Schedule A to Bylaws 2020-40 adopt pandemic supplemental unemployment benefit policy. Bylaw being policy P03-1012-20 be amended to include an employee who applies for and qualifies for the Canadian Emergency Care Benefit as well as unemployment benefits during a temporary layoff during a pandemic. All those in favor? Okay, opposed? Okay, the motion is carried. Moving on to the confirmation of proceedings, moved by Deputy Mayor Gierzak, seconded by Councillor Hutchin, that the Council of the Municipality of Brockton authorize that the following bylaw be read, enacted, signed, sealed, numbered as followed. Bylaw 2020-55, April 28th, 2020, confirmatory bylaw. All those in favor? Carried. Now a motion to adjourn, moved by Councillor Lang, seconded by Councillor Light, so that the Council of the Municipality of Brockton does now hereby adjourn at 9:59 p.m. to meet again on May 12th, 2020. All those in favor? Motion is carried. Okay, thank you
I'm
very
glad we
much.
started at 6.
Oh, that's a record meeting.
Thank you. Great meeting, staff
4
and
hours.
Chris.
Okay,
Thank
thank you very
you.
much, everybody.
Thanks, everyone. Stay well.
Thanks,
Great
everybody.
meeting. Bye-bye now.
See ya.